In the world of high stakes and shimmering potential, where the digital titans tower over the remnants of faded industries, there's a quiet undercurrent that most of you will dismiss as conspiracy. A misstep of this magnitude isn't a mere illusion. It's a blood-soaked stage set by those who lurk behind the corporate facade. Our journey begins with the murmurings of power plays within the tech realm. Around the world, tech behemoths have slowly but surely become miners themselves, acquiring raw material mines, an action dismissed by many as mere diversification. But in truth, it's more than that. It is a covert strategy to seize the lifeblood of future technologies, the very resources hiding beneath the Earth's crust. You can almost hear the sound of panic-ridden footsteps across Wall Street, as traditional exchanges struggle to comprehend their diminishing relevance. Here lies the true vacuums of power that detonate erratically, void of any warnings on surface-level graphs. If you feel the tremors underfoot, it is because you're witnessing the precursors to a war that is being fought away from prying eyes. These acquisitions aren't random. They are acts of calculated aggression, a gambit against stock exchanges perceived as slow giants shackled by bureaucracy. This first chapter of manipulation unfurls with Samsung at its axis, a company navigating the murky waters of resource procurement. As others cling to outdated supply chains, Samsung has already taken a leap, a dive into control at its rawest form. This domination over supply is Samsung's audacious signal to an industry slow to adapt. They've made their first move. The others must now navigate a board with fewer and fewer pieces. The irony isn't lost on those paying attention. This geopolitical chessboard reveals the players' true intentions. Apple and Tesla loom on the horizon. The once unbreakable tide of conventional wisdom, which urged corporations to share their supply chains, is being unraveled stream by stream, draining trust from the global marketplace. But the masses remain entranced by ephemeral stock price movements, oblivious to the undercurrent setting the stage for an all-consuming inferno. In their haste to join the gold rush of speculation, they've neglected a glaring reality: the tech world's vicious race to monopolize core resources. The origins of this industrial crescendo lie buried in contracts and acquisition strategies far beyond public reach. Dismissed warnings? I call it denial by design. This is a design that was never intended for you to unravel. But here we are, staring into the abyss of a new era, whether you choose to acknowledge its inevitability or not. The stage is set. Now we dissect the players, the moves, and the inevitable fall of dominoes. Welcome to the opening act of chaos. Chapter 2, The Silver Conundrum. Welcome to the heart of the labyrinth, a place where only the bold dare venture, and even fewer understand the true stakes. Tech titans are no strangers to this realm, but Samsung's recent maneuver has sent shockwaves through the industry. You see, while others were sidetracked by ephemeral trends, Samsung was plotting something more sinisterly strategic, dominating the silver supply. The world's most coveted industrial metal, once an overlooked commodity, has now become the heart of a conspiracy buried beneath legal jargon and boardroom whispers. At the epicenter of this upheaval lies Samsung's deal with Silverstorm Mining, a move that, on the surface, seems mere industrial diversification, but if you buy that, you're swallowing a pill soaked in naivety. This isn't a mere acquisition, it's a hostile annexation of a disproportionate slice of the global silver reservoir. Ask yourself, why silver? In the age of renewable energy, 5G networks, and semiconductors, silver isn't just metal. It's the DNA of tomorrow's technology. But while the world sleeps, Samsung has quietly lashed together a legal fortress around this treasure. It's all thanks to South Korea's Trade Regulation Act Amendment, number 2025-781, a document no one bothered to dissect, crafted with the meticulousness of a grandmaster at chess. This legal masterpiece subtly redefines strategic resources, granting national champions such as Samsung near impunity in resource acquisition abroad. The legislative shadow play allows them to sidestep usual international scrutiny, morphing regulatory hurdles into mere speed bumps. Consider this an ambush against the complacent giants of tech. With one swift move, Samsung has positioned itself as an indispensable node in the tech supply chain, securing its citadel against any who would dare outmaneuver. As other corporations scramble to recalibrate, Samsung sits, the architect of a terminal squeeze. A squeeze that promises to gag any wannabe competitor trying to outrace time with inferior supply lines. Apple, Tesla, wake up. Begin your desperate scramble for seconds as the first pickings are already gone, swept into Samsung's digital cave. What you're witnessing is an unprecedented realignment of market power, a vacuum being filled by Samsung's calculated gambit. Forget about simple supply and demand economics you've been spoon-fed. This is warfare of attrition on a corporate scale. Samsung is terraforming the very topography of market supply, and the global markets, tethered to archaic models, quiver in response. No longer is silver just a commodity. It is a linchpin. Soon you will see margin calls erupt, strangling smaller players as they scrabble for physical assets in a paper-thin market. As resource pools grow scarce and expensive, Samsung imposes itself as the kingmaker, dictating terms not just to rivals, but to entire nation-states. This isn't just cost control. It's a kneeling of competitors before an unrivaled crown. This is technocratic hegemony in its purest form. Thus, the stage is varnished with the oil of high-stakes drama, its players set upon a path to reckoning. As Samsung entrenches its grip, a vigil of panic spreads among competitors, each fearing who the next might bend the knee to Samsung's silver crown. Stay tuned as we delve deeper, illuminating the shadows where power coagulates and conspiracy thrives. Will industries rise to break their chains or succumb piece by piece, domino by domino? Strategies unfurl, but only chaos dictates the outcome. Chapter 3. Industry Analysis, an Unseen Signal. The room twitches with a murmur of disbelief, the echo of ticking time bombs cloaked beneath polished conference rooms where decisions carve futures out of thin air. Samsung, the shadow puppeteer, their fingers deftly threading the global supply marionette show, has made its move. This isn't a mere acquisition. It's an outright conquest of strategic acquisition. A move executed with the finesse of an apex predator in the financial wilderness. The entire industry reels, spellbound, while Samsung solidifies its claim over a world poised on the brink of a resource revolution. Amidst this theater of power, most have their eyes glued to the banal spectacle of quarterly earnings and revenue targets. The true plot unfurls silently, a masterpiece of economic legerdemain orchestrated with deft precision. Silver is no longer a supplemental byproduct, it's the new gold standard, the enabler of technological epochs. And Samsung, through their maneuver, signals an unseen shift, not just supply chain realignment, but paradigm redefinition. It's not about mere inventories or stocks. For those relying on copper wires and mundane metals to wheel their future-forward dreams, Samsung's strategy is a shrill siren cutting through the din of misleading peace. In retrospect, one realizes this wasn't a balance sheet move, it was a playbook for dominance. The purchase of Silverstorm Mining was the first chess move in a game where conventional wisdom was the first casualty. Meanwhile, in sleek boardrooms from Palo Alto to Shenzhen, execs scramble to decode the arcane future of technological alchemy. Rivals like Apple and Tesla, giants in their own right, stand with shoestrings knit into an unholy truce of necessity. Complacency melts away under the scalding realization. Their grip on resources is embarrassingly idle. The speed of smart supply has been rendered moot, blindsided by Samsung's foresight and bared fangs. What began as a digital arms race has morphed into something new, a marketplace defined by the cash of silver. An unnoticed jugular vein of the industry now throbs with urgency. The old matrix of procurement has collapsed, forcing others to execute frantic recalibrations. Yet as they scramble, the clock ticks inexorably towards a date with fiscal fate, one where Samsung figures as gatekeeper. In this vast landscape, the microchips and gadgets that power our world could soon become hostage to those wielding silver's might. Amidst this tumult, a new cartel of procurement sprouts, tech titans convening in secret, plotting the next gambit in this cutthroat saga of supply strangulation. Forced convergence on a path Samsung has drawn with invisible ink. Spot the signs of panic. The hastily launched strategic alliances, the midnight oil burned across stock exchanges as once comfortable players scramble to clutch at the vestiges of preeminence. The vacuum Samsung has engineered is not simply a matter of procurement, but an ecosystem they intend to cultivate, an industrial rebirth where they hold the keys. Soon, this exclusive claim over strategic metals will reverberate through global economies, resonating with a seismic impact that will redefine import, export, and innovation alike. It's more than an unfolding market shift. It's a massacre of the unprepared. Here, silver isn't just a tool, but a weapon, as tech battalions fortify against the inevitability of corporate intrusion. Thus, this unseen signal morphs into a blazing siren, a wake-up call to those lost in antiquated paradigms, blind to the insidious creep of domination. As the dust barely settles, Samsung stands ready to wield their cunningly accrued power, reshaping realty with every stroke of legislation, every pound of silver hoarded. Stay vigilant, for the implications of this strategic pivot devilishly unfold, threatening to upend the very foundation upon which rivals rest their futures. Are you prepared to grapple with this reality? For this isn't simply tech industry evolution. This is revolution cloaked in brilliance. A new era dawns under the banner of corporate hegemony, where silver reigns supreme. Time will tell if others can stem the tide or be consumed by its gleaming allure. Chapter 4. FOMO in the tech world. You think you're safe within the cozy confines of your comfort zone. You believe the stock market gurus and economic analysts when they say diversification is your shield. Yet, here we are on the brink of a reckoning, and you're about to realize just how vulnerable you've always been. The tech world is in the throes of FOMO, fear of missing out. And it's not just affecting your portfolio, it's poised to devour the very lifeline of tech innovation. Consider this. The tech giants, your Apple, your Tesla, have clung to reactive strategies for too long, missing the insidious whisperings of an impending coup in resource acquisition. As they continue their fruitless quest for innovation bragging rights, Samsung tightens its grip around the one asset that truly matters: control of the supply chain at the most fundamental level. They aren't just buying silver, they're buying their way into a future where other tech companies are left scrambling to catch up. Where the media feeds you platitudes about industry battles over consumer loyalty, the real war rages unseen. Strategic resource acquisition is the new battleground. Silver, the cherished metal of industry, an unobtrusive yet critical element for the gadgets you worship. Samsung's acquisition of silver storm mining laid the cornerstone for a monolithic empire, stealthily crafting a chokehold on raw materials, veiled by the illusion of cooperative market networks. This FOMO isn't characterized by nascent startups burning midnight oil in garages. It's an insidious transformation within plush boardrooms lined with polished mahogany tables. Here, decisions made go beyond competitive edge. They're the foreshadowing of an industry straitjacketed by unseen monopolistic ambitions. Apple and Tesla now eye the same playbook, yet they must navigate the treacherous web Samsung has woven. Their frantic overtures, informal alliances, shadow negotiations, rushed calls to mining companies still operating under delusions of parity signal a collision course. Deals are brokered at dizzying speed, yet the terms inevitably favor the early dominators. Samsung, the silent architect behind this silver siege, watches as others scuttle to catch glimmers of opportunity. It's a script they wrote, ensuring they're the only ones holding the quill. You, an observer, might perceive this as typical industry maneuvering, a routine played out in the labyrinth of corporate strategy. In reality, it's a textbook lesson in prescient positioning, where Samsung's moves have cornered the column of growth, innovation, and market dominance. Why? Because the titans have realized, far too late, that an era of reliance on spot markets and just-in-time deliveries is fading fast, supplanted by the specter of direct resource control. The fear is palpable. Only those shackled by obsolete strategies continue to view commodity chains as secondary concerns. It's a precarious balance. Disappear the offers and witness the sanctified hearth of innovation fall silent as desperation stokes the flames of reckless bidding wars. Quiet attempts at market manipulation become more brazen as plotters scramble to realign themselves within this shifting matrix of supply and demand. Your vigilance here isn't optional, it's essential. For in this game of strategic brinkmanship, only those keen enough to interpret this industrial symphony of acquisition and preservation will survive. As once competitive pathways evaporate, expansive inaction crystallizes the knowledge. Samsung's foresight is your perilous wake-up call to the raw calculus of scarcity dynamics, a domain where silver, like the cash it minted, wields unfathomable arbiter power. What will you do? The clock is ticking, the tides are turning, and each decision becomes a narrative of its own, locked in the annals of market history. This is more than survival of the fittest. This is survival of the foresighted. The art of seeing beyond the misty horizons of comfort and embracing the truth of a tech world consumed by a cascade of unleashed desires for the precious and the finite. Chapter 5. Anatomy of a Perfect Storm. When dealing with markets, complacency is an assassin lurking in plain sight. February 1st, 2026 began as a seemingly ordinary day for the silver market. Yet, beneath its polished surface lay the heart of a bomb ticking away seconds till detonation. As market players fiddled with closing positions and outfits rehearsed their morning routines, a tremor coursed through the thin crust of silver trading, snatching attention with its sheer audacity. Silver, long treated as a sideshow compared to its shiny sibling, gold, now took center stage. Ignorance masked actual peril as a high-stakes drama unfolded. Onlookers satisfied with surface-level scrutiny failed to heed the shivers in the financial web. A masterclass in synchronization preceding the inevitable market hemorrhage. In the next few hours, Samsung's strategic acquisition of Silver Storm Mining, an expansion aimed at monopolizing the resource flow, revealed its true intent: a calculated lunge at the supply chokehold. In boardrooms held hostage by this sudden tilt, chaos reigned. The market, deprived of information until the 11th hour, found itself grappling with a contractual tsunami that no algorithm or sentiment index could quantify. As smartphones buzzed with notifications, traders beside their gleaming terminals entered a surreal battlefield. Heavyweight hedge fund managers stewed over spreadsheets, devouring the same question: who held the strings to their puppet show, pulling them taut in this unfolding calamity? Financial media might peddle tales of a chance event, but you know better. February 1st to 2nd, 2026 marks more than flickering pixels on a screen. It's the epitome of an engineered pandemonium. The phone lines, once channels for business as usual, now echoed panicked reverberations. Contacts previously deemed secondary jolted to prominence as Silver's spiral birthed a desperate scavenger hunt. The prolonged bull positioning, meticulously cultivated over months, transformed overnight. Asset revaluation became a crucible for those unprepared for the abrupt recalibration of market equilibrium. For Samsung and a cadre of foresighted tacticians, this turbulence was less an unforeseen storm and more the inevitable fruit of an acutely leveraged position, a strategy of delay until maximum impact was attainable. As you trail this forensic path of precarity, understand that Samsung's orchestration was not just about aggregate brilliance. It symbolized an audacity deeply ingrained in leveraging possession as both shield and spear. A paradigm shift had occurred, asserting that the rulebooks of yore are only as useful as old treasure maps, best framed on walls, admired but obsolete. For the rest, a ragtag legion of those tethered to afterthoughts of glory, it was a stark awakening to the reality of supply chain fragility and speculative dependencies. Silver's trajectory, often tethered to industrial applications, now morphed into a narrative where the tangible and the volatile converged, where innovation awaited those willing to wield such power with both precision and ruthlessness. In the wreckage of assumptions, as you reconstruct a world realigned by scarcity, reflect not on the chaos itself, but on the clarity it brings. The curtain has been pulled back, exposing the intricacies behind the show. A script penned by entities far removed from the fray, where resource acquisition isn't merely advantageous, but essential. Time and again, the lesson escapes those blinded by routine. When faced with an uncertain future, it's not the familiar that survives. It's the audacious, ready to shape destiny with every shard of ambition they seize. Chapter 6. Chronology of Chaos. Nestled in the unforgiving expanse of 48 hours in early February 2026, the financial world faced a maelstrom unlike any other. But while you might see this period as a frenzy of numbers and red-tinted screens, it is, in reality, an orchestrated crescendo of chaos. The unwary believe the silver market's contortions were capricious, yet beneath the surface, the same institutions that tout stability were the very architects of this pandemonium. Samsung's recent acquisition endeavors had already sent subtle ripples through the market, akin to the first domino teetering to fall. However, it wasn't until the dawn of February 1st, with markets opening against a backdrop of tension, that the markets began to bleed. Silver, once steadfast, became a lighthouse signal in a storm of strategic repositioning. Hedge funds and institutional investors were suddenly locked in a death grip, confronted by an avalanche of margin calls and liquidity crises, an expected casualty in this engineered scrimmage. Internally, the scene played out like a treacherous dance. On one end, brokers were frantically adjusting spreadsheets, grappling with a Treasury Department memorandum that slithered unnoticed, the sealing of the Commodity Control Accord of 2025, buried in bureaucratic camouflage. Buried on page 87, paragraph 4.6 stipulates temporary suspension clauses for trades exceeding a %5 threshold of volatilities in precious metals, a legal trick designing loopholes in their favor while squeezing the lifeblood from smaller market participants. These decisions did not just ripple through trading exchanges like the CME and other precious metal pits. they detonated them, inciting panic from Tokyo to London, exacerbating fears of a derivative implosion. As silver prices swung violently, the paper market diverged dangerously from the physical fundamentals, an illustration of disjointed reality where institutional scripts clashed with on-the-ground truths. Chart magnates obsessed over the ticking seconds as the horizontal bars leapt vertiginously. Each move was a silent shriek, an artist's rendition of a financial bloodbath. As $23.45 per troy ounce became a distorted memory, subjected to an erratic rise and fall, discussions morphed into bitter disputes over who held dominance and who danced to foreign whispers. However, the crescendo unfolded not because of Samsung's purchase alone. The flash was the ignition for dormant insecurities trapped in a long smoldering tinder of supply chain fragility and contraction of available resources. Over-leveraged positions began to uncoil like coiled vipers, striking out beneath the shadow of an industry fractured by dependency on just-in-time resource procurement, a harrowing testament to greed over foresight. In the backdrop were murmurings of the ominous Indian fiscal policies imposing levies on jewelry imports, whose impact was the equivalent of dousing a bonfire with gasoline. India, with its insatiable craving for silver, suddenly became an unexpected arbiter in a market otherwise governed by Western ambitions, solidifying its position as a fortress of demand in an otherwise imploding arena. Ultimately, as the dust settled over these 2 days, those with foresight, those who anticipated not just the movement but the motives, emerged victorious, having played the game of scarcity as if their lives depended on it, and in many ways, it did. This was the crucible, the impromptu examination where strategic prowess was weighed against the frenetic entropy of greed. Such is the terrain where fortunes are made and dreams spiraled into oblivion. Reflect on these events as more than mere statistics. Recognize them as a testament to the fluidity of markets and the inescapable truth. In the world of high finance, chaos is not merely a byproduct, but a meticulously scripted act waiting for its stage. As the market braces for impact once more, those poised with vision and audacity await, hungrily watching for the next flare of vulnerability to exploit, reminding you that in this theater, security is but an illusion.